February the 2nd, 1970, a bitter winter morning over Montana. The sky is bright, the air razor sharp, and the ground below a frozen patchwork of snow and wheat fields. Somewhere above that quiet landscape, a sleek silver fighter, a Convair F-106 Delta Dart, one of the fastest interceptors ever built, is locked in a deadly spin. The pilot, Captain Gary Faust, fights desperately with the controls. The aircraft is inverted, tumbling, and losing altitude fast. He's tried everything, throttle, rudder, ailerons, but the Delta Dart refuses to obey. The G-forces build. The altimeter unwinds at 15,000 feet. He makes the hardest decision a pilot can make. He pulls the ejection handle. The seat rockets free, blasting him out of the spinning jet. His parachute deploys. Below, he expects to see the F-106 smash into the ground in a ball of fire. But then, something impossible happens. The jet stops spinning, its nose levels out. The engine throttles back to idle. The aircraft, now pilotless, begins to glide. A few miles later, it flares perfectly and lands itself, wheels down, in a snowy Montana field. It doesn't explode. It doesn't burn. It just slides to a stop, engine still running, waiting, like a loyal dog that came home without its master. This is the unbelievable story of the F-106 Delta Dart, the ultimate interceptor that literally landed itself. The age of the interceptor. To understand how such an aircraft came to be, we need to return to the SIPSAs and Arapizan era. Of atomic anxiety and supersonic ambition, the Cold War was intensifying. Soviet long-range bombers, capable of carrying strategic payloads, were becoming faster and more advanced. The United States needed a countermeasure, a jet that could launch at a moment's notice, climb to 50,000 feet within minutes, and stop an intruder before it reached American airspace. Sure, this wasn't about traditional air combat. It was about interception, pure speed, altitude, and guided missile precision. Convair, already renowned for its bold Delta wing aircraft, answered the call with a family of cutting-edge interceptors. The F-102 Delta Dagger, followed by its sleeker, faster successor, the F-106 Delta Dart. When the F-106 entered service in 1959, it represented the peak of the interceptor age, a jet designed around a single purpose: to reach the target first and ensure it never reached home soil. The design, a Cold War spear, the F-106 was the pinnacle of Convair's Delta wing evolution. Its sleek, triangular silhouette was optimized for speed and altitude. Powered by a single Pratt and Whitney J75 afterburning turbojet, it could reach Mach 2.3, or nearly 1,500 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest jets in the world. Its climb rate was astonishing. In less than 6 minutes, it could soar from sea level to 40,000 feet. But what made the Delta Dart truly remarkable wasn't just its speed, it was its brain. The F-106 was integrated into the SAGE Semi-Automatic Ground Environment Defense Network, a massive Cold War computer system that linked radar, stations, command centers, and interceptors across North America. When a radar detected an incoming enemy, SAGE could automatically direct an F-106 to intercept, even taking partial control of the aircraft through autopilot commands. The pilot became less of a dogfighter and more of a missile operator. In its belly bay, the F-106 carried 4 Falcon Air 2 air missiles and a Genie nuclear rocket, a weapon so terrifying it could destroy an entire bomber formation with a single atomic blast. This was the spear tip of America's nuclear shield. Fast, deadly, and as fate would prove, almost too smart for its own good. The Montana training mission. By 1970, the F-106 had been in service for over a decade. It was still the U.S. Air Force's top interceptor, though newer designs like the F-15 were on the horizon. That February morning, Captain Gary Faust and 2 other pilots from the 71st Fighter Interceptor Squadron took off from Malmstrom Air Force Base near Great Falls, Montana, for a routine training mission. The exercise was simple: practice a dogfight maneuver, an aerial combat scenario between friendly aircraft. Faust F-106, tail number 580787, climbed smoothly to altitude. The pilots lined up and began mock combat, but as Faust pulled hard into a vertical climb, his aircraft suddenly began to buffet, the airflow separating over the delta wings. Then came the spin. The uncontrollable spin. Unlike straight-wing fighters, delta wing aircraft have complex aerodynamics. When they lose smooth airflow, they can enter a flat spin, a deadly condition where the jet rotates horizontally like a falling plate, descending rapidly with no lift. Faust's instruments were useless. The horizon spun wildly. He tried to recover, throttle back, neutralize controls, deploy the drag. Shoot, nothing worked. The F-106 just spun faster. At 15,000 feet, realizing he was seconds from disaster, Faust pulled the ejection handle. The rocket seat blasted him away from the tumbling jet. Through his visor, he saw the silver Delta Dart spinning toward the ground, his heart sinking as he thought, that's the end of her. But then physics, and a touch of luck, did something extraordinary. The sudden change in weight and airflow from the ejection jolted the jet out of its spin. The nose dropped, airflow reattached, and the F-106 leveled out. Without a pilot, it simply flew itself. The ghost jet, freed from its deadly spin, the jet stabilized. The throttle, which had been set near idle, kept the engine running smoothly. The aircraft began a shallow descent toward a snow-covered field near Big Sandy, Montana. With its delta wings generating huge lift even at low speed, the F-106 slowed to around 175 miles per hour. And then, as if guided by invisible hands, it touched down. The landing gear miraculously held up. The jet slid across the snow for several hundred yards, the nose dipping slightly, before coming to rest upright in a gentle plume of white powder, engine still humming, system still active, no explosion. Local ranchers, watching from a distance, couldn't believe what they were seeing. A U.S. Air Force jet landing itself, perfectly intact in their field, with no one on board. The recovery. When rescue crews arrived, they found the F-106 sitting quietly, engine still running, the cockpit was empty, the canopy open, the radio silent. They shut down the engine, inspected the aircraft, and were stunned. There was minimal damage. A few dents, a bent flap, but structurally, the jet was sound. The Air Force dubbed it the Cornfield Bomber, though technically it was a Cornfield Interceptor. Captain Faust, meanwhile, was picked up safely after parachuting into the snow. When he learned that his aircraft had survived and even landed itself, he couldn't believe it. In the official report, it was listed simply as aircraft landed without pilot. Engineers later repaired the plane, tested it, and incredibly returned it to service. It went on to fly for years afterward before finally being retired to the National Museum of the United States Air Force, where it remains to this day. It's one of the few aircraft in history that landed better without a pilot than with one. The legend of the Delta Dart. The F-106 story doesn't end with that one miracle. For nearly 3 decades, the Delta Dart stood as America's premier all-weather interceptor. It was the last of the pure interceptors, jets designed not for air superiority or bombing, but for one mission, defending the homeland against nuclear attack. Its pilots loved it and feared it in equal measure. The aircraft was smooth, stable, and lightning, fast but also unforgiving. One mistake, one pulled turn, and it could flip into an unrecoverable spin, as Faust discovered firsthand. Yet, in the right hands, it was magnificent. The F-106 still holds the world record for the longest unrefueled supersonic flight by a single engine, jet over 100 miles. It was so advanced that some of its systems were later adapted into the F-15 and F-16 programs. In many ways, the F-106 represented the end of an era, the last interceptor before the age of multi-role fighters. The end of the interceptor era. By the 1980s, the strategic landscape had changed. The threat of Soviet bombers diminished as intercontinental ballistic missiles became the primary nuclear delivery system. Fighter design philosophy shifted from single-purpose interceptors to multi-role fighters capable of dogfighting, bombing, and reconnaissance. In 1988, the U.S. Air Force officially retired the Delta Dart, replacing it with the F-15 and later, the F-16. Many of the remaining F-106s were converted into target drones, designated QF-106, used for missile testing. Ironically, the interceptor that had been built to protect America from its enemies became the target in training exercises. Still, a handful survived, in museums silent and silver, their delta wings forever frozen in flight. What made it special? The F-106 wasn't perfect. It was demanding to fly and maintenance heavy, but it embodied the boldest era of aviation design. It combined sleek aerodynamics, early digital systems, and brute power in a way that made it both lethal and beautiful. Its delta wings provided incredible high-speed stability. Its speed, climb, and radar were years ahead of most contemporaries. And while it never fired a shot in anger, it represented a promise that no Soviet bomber would ever reach American skies unchallenged. Even today, pilots who flew it remember the F-106 with reverence. They called it the Six, and to them, it was more than a machine. It was a living, breathing guardian of the Cold War sky, the plane that refused to die. And yet, its most famous legacy remains that impossible February morning in 1970 when one Delta Dart decided to keep flying on its own. A combination of aerodynamic luck, perfect throttle setting, and balanced fuel load allowed the aircraft to glide and land almost as if guided by instinct. When engineers examined the telemetry data, they found no rational explanation. It was, quite literally, a once-in-a-lifetime event, a perfect storm of physics and fate. Captain Foss went on to have a distinguished Air Force career. Years later, when asked about the incident, he laughed and said, "I just gave it a good takeoff. It decided to finish the landing on its own." Today, if you visit the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, you can stand before the actual jet serial number 580787, the Cornfield Bomber. That February morning long ago, a Cold War interceptor proved it could think for itself, because this wasn't just another fighter jet, this was the F-106 Delta Dart, the ultimate interceptor that landed itself.